Everybody, it is still 6 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. We shall begin with the approval of the agenda sent out by Clerk Sullivan, and I would ask for a motion to approve. John Wernham, seconded Charles Foreman. All those in favor, show of hands. Thank you. And now agenda item number 3, confirmation of the minutes. That was sent out as well last week by Clerk Sullivan. I trust you've had an opportunity to review them. John, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move to accept the minutes. Thank
you. Seconded, Councillor Oosterhoff. Further discussion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise a hand. Thank you. I can see them and that's carried. Item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. All right, we'll start off with delegations. Have you received notification of any delegations, Clerk Sullivan? No. Okay, we will move on to briefings. Item 6A, and I will remind everyone during briefings, the presenter of doing the briefing has 10 minutes to present. And after that time, the committee members have an opportunity to ask questions. Members of the public, should they be here at this point in time or present at the meeting, are not allowed to ask questions during briefings. So right now I will turn it over to Tracy Snow, Manager of Rural Economic and Community Development, to present to the committee. Tracy?
I'm working on it. Sorry. Hold on. Can everybody see me?
Yes. Hello,
sorry,
welcome.
The other group were, thank you. I would have thought the other group were first before me. That's okay. All right. So can we please start the PowerPoint? You all have received the report. I tried to detail as much as possible the report in terms of information. The PowerPoint is just a brief introduction to the report to start the conversation after I have my 10 minutes.
Just a quick moment while our meeting host pulls it up. It was sent via email, so just give us 5 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
This doesn't count to your time, Ms. Snow.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. Glad you're all here.
Yeah, nice to see you, Tracy.
Yes, all of you too. We may have offered Karen and Luke the previous one, but that's okay. That's all good. All right. So I just thought in terms of the report that I supplied to you, I'm just going to, this is very brief. I've got 10 minutes. So I'm just going to do the PowerPoint real quick. This is my introduction for the December 5th meeting. Thank you very much. Please, next slide. As per the report, I have 2 sections that I'm talking about with regards to the rural strategy. One is rural agricultural development and one is rural tourism. So with regard to the rural agricultural development, number 1 is the community training farm. We have had amazing success looking to continue the program in 2023, 2024. 30 participants have been participating all summer in the training farm, plus multiple partners with the City of Kingston, St. Lawrence College, Corrections Canada, and Loving Spoonful. Kingston Public Market Development, number 2. We have a council meeting tomorrow evening to announce that we have approved Loving Spoonful as the proponent for the RFP that was set out to operate Market Square. I have been given the task to oversee with Loving Spoonful the operation of Market Square, to revitalize it and then make it a designated Ontario farmers market. Lots to discuss there, but we can look at that further. Next slide, please. Number 3, Cecil and Wilma Graham Park. We have had many discussions in the past few meetings about the accumulated amount of $300,000. I'd like to discuss that further. I think we talked about a boat launch there, and then public engagement is recommended on the annual sum of about $92,000 a year. We are fortunate enough that my department is actually now overseeing that amount. So I think there's further discussion to be had. The abattoir. So abattoir, we've had previous discussions about the abattoir. So I was looking at building an abattoir in Napanee in my previous role. Since then, the Joyceville Abattoir has closed. So Wallace Meats has closed in September. He retired. I've been talking to actually the Governor General of Corrections Service Canada to talk about reopening the abattoir. We're working with them really closely about what that could look like. We're tying in training component with St. Lawrence College and the community training farm as part of this training. Fanshawe College is also offered to support St. Lawrence College and ourselves in the training with regards to the abattoir and butcher training. And then there's also still discussion that I'm very involved in with the Napanee Abattoir still hopefully, working as well. Next slide, please. Community Kitchen Training Day. We were talking in the past about the Community Kitchen Training Day, helping support residents and food producers to learn about making and selling food in our commercial kitchens. We're partnering with Seth Frontenac on this as well. And it's now decided that February 10th is the day because we had to pull in all of our partners to make sure that happened. The next one is rural funding motion. So there was a motion, John, you had made that motion. I would believe it was December of last year with regards to the Frontenac CFDC allowing to have funding and support services for rural Kingston. I've been working really closely with the executive director of the Frontenac CFDC and also the federal government to see if we can make that happen. Also, our local MPP has been really amazingly supportive about looking through OMAFRA, so the Ontario Ministry of Agricultural, Farm and Rural Affairs, to support grants in rural businesses and farms in Kingston. Right now, OMAFRA's cap is at 100,000 population, and we, of course, don't need that. So Ted Hsu has just been phenomenal in terms of supporting us to look at that as an option. Next slide, please. Rural health initiatives. So I think I've mentioned in the past, I'm working closely with Queen's University to support rural health initiatives, looking at gaps and opportunities. So right now, after 10 months of that, we're looking at creating a map on direction to build on opportunities. And coincidentally, and funny enough, in a good way, transportation, of course, is one of the #1 concerns. That being said, number 8, the rural transit study. So the City of Kingston and regional municipalities, South Frontenac, Loyalist, and Gananoque, we're working together to review rural transit gaps and opportunities through an organization that won the RFP through a company called IBI in Toronto. And I'm supporting closely the Rural Health Initiative with Queen's University and the Rural Transit Study with the City of Kingston to help really focus on supporting rural health. Next slide, please. And the Business Support Office. So happy to say that we have a Business Support Office. It was actually initiated about 1.5 years ago prior to me starting, but we hired a new Business Support Analyst, Mark Nardi, who was our Communications Officer before. And we're just having incredible results with businesses calling, looking for support through internal services, licensing, planning, permitting, and that also includes rural services as well. Next slide, please. One of the other pillars of my responsibility through the rural strategy is rural tourism opportunities. We had Open Farms Kingston and Frontenac this September 9th and 10th, actually. We're working together with Frontenac County on 2023 development for Open Farms tours and other month-long events we're thinking. The other one was on October 2nd. I held the Open Farms Harvest event at City Hall and Market Square. We sold out at 100 attendees. It was a great event with 6 local chefs, 35 farms supplying food for 6 local chefs, local wine, local beer. We had a farmers market, and we also had sessions with regards to farmers and food pairing, and it was a great event. Next slide, please. And then rural cycling event. I had talked to all of you in the early spring about holding a rural cycling event in the fall. I ended up not losing a staff, but she was moved to another department. So I'm looking at holding that event in the spring, where possibly it could start at Investa Center and head down the KMP Trail, and then offering local food and businesses along the path to support local and rural businesses. And that's my presentation.
Thanks, Tracy. Okay, let's open up the floor for questions from the committee. I'll just caution, if you have a comment to make that prefaces your question, keep it to 2 minutes and then ask your question. So yeah, the floor is open to for Tracy to ask questions. And I observe you. Yes, John, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks for that presentation, Tracy. So of course, in the background, I'm flipping through the report that you gave us.
Yes.
And you said that our MPP, Ted Shu,
Yes.
has come up against this 100,000 population cap.
So it's not him. Yeah. So OMAFRA, the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Farming and Rural Affairs, with regards to their grant and funding models, so Rural Economic Development Fund, any of their funds, their cap is 100,000 population.
So can you please investigate where that comes from? Because I'm always leery that when something that precise comes out and says, is that actually a thing?
It is actually a thing. It's actually documented on their website. And because MPP Ted Shu and I have been talking about it over the past month, it is actually a thing. And their representative, so our representative, Karen Fisher from the Eastern Ontario Marketplace for OMAFRA, has also said to us 100,000 population is the cap,
but
which is crazy.
That must be some sort of regulatory decision somewhere, which means it can be subject to administrative challenge, of course. And the weird thing about that is that Frontenac County right now has a population of 150,000. So
But not the hamlets.
Okay, so then we're getting really weird about what counts to this 100,000 and how
I agree.
transparent is that, or how opaque it is. You know, Middlesex County has 455,000, Essex County has 398,000. So what counts for $100,000, and who decides?
100,000 population. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, we have counties that have CFDCs and funding that are considerably larger than Kingston. So if there actually is 100,000 population cap, who counts in that 100,000 population?
I know. And so I've been working really hard since you put that motion together a year ago about what that looks like. And so I'm working closely with Ann Pritchard from Frontenac CFDC, who we're working with the federal government on pushing the geography of that back out. And then also Ted Shu's office with regards to OMAFRA. I absolutely agree with you. So if you have any recommendations, please.
Well, I'd just like to see the regulations that say that 100,000 population cap and how it's defined. The lawyer in me says, why is that number so precise? And how are counties that have almost 400,000 in their population receiving a CFDC support, but rural Kingston?
Oh, sorry, you're talking about CFDC and not OMAFRA. Okay.
All of it.
So the CFDC is very different. OMAFRA is not. OMAFRA is 100. Sorry, Councillor Roosterhoff. OMAFRA is the 100,000 population cap. CFDC is capped at Frontenac County at this point. Two different things.
Okay.
I'll let you ruminate on that, and you might have a supplementary question, John. But I will go to Councillor Roosterhoff. I recognize you now.
Excuse me. Yeah, good evening, everybody. I really appreciate John's questions. I think I've told you guys in the past that 6 years ago, now 7, we've been trying to deal with this. So it's either an immovable wall or we're not asking the right questions. And I would suggest that it's not just Ted Shu. We really need to get to John Jordan involved in that, Tracy, because John Jordan is the MPP active with the government, right?
Yeah. So
we're going to get more through him than Ted Shu. I don't think they know Ted Shu exists, probably. So that's why I have more questions, Madam Chair, but I just wanted to supply that. We've been trying to solve that one. I was in Harrismith weeks after I was first elected saying, what can we do about this? Because it's been coming up and the right people don't seem to know how to do this. So that's amazing. But I do have other questions too, Madam Chair. Go
ahead.
Okay, I couldn't quite remember. So thanks for that, Tracy, for your presentation. Obviously, important work that's being done. I'm particularly pleased with, the work related to the community gardens. And should we come up with a motion for council to, for expansion of the community gardens, Tracy? Almost like a
community farm or community gardens?
Community gardens, like where we're getting, or who would do that? Like that's Loving Spoonful sources its food from community gardens, right?
Yeah, so the community training farm and the community gardens are two totally different things.
Oh,
So community
right.
gardens they're overseen with Loving Spoonful with Rec and Leisure. Community training farm, which is on the southwest portion, just above the community garden at Days in Front, is a completely different plot of land.
Okay.
Community gardens is a Rec and Leisure question, which of course I work closely with Rec and Leisure, so happy to.
I do want us to keep that as a parking lot issue. I really want to make sure we're involved, or if it's part of but that we need to have, if I believe the request is there, can we expand? And I would like to make sure we, as a city, relax any policies or whatever to enable that. So maybe we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
you mentioned.
Just one thought. So just a comment. I'm not responsible for community gardens.
Okay.
At all. And nor is my office. It's definitely Rec and Leisure.
Okay, well, we'll keep that as a parking lot conversation after. Where did you say your business support office is? Where's it located?
In City Hall.
Oh, okay, in City Hall, on the second floor there?
Yeah, well, we're actually, we're moving to the BWB building across the street. All of us under strategy, innovation, and partnerships are moving to the BWB building in January.
To the WIG Standard building?
Sorry?
No? The WIG Standard building? No, which?
I guess so. The one
above the
rest of
okay, above the cake. Okay, I didn't know that either. All right. And then they're talking about Cecil Graham Park there. Are we targeting and what more can we do there to move that closer, or for community discussion? Can we have a public meeting?
Yes. So the $300,000 that we've been discussing over the past year towards the potential boat launch there, according to my conversations with other departments, they're happy to say that we could, look towards that happening in late 2023, early 2024. We've just been told that the rural business office, so my office, is now responsible for that Samsung fund, the two funds that are coming in at the $92,000 a year. And so I'm recommending that we have public engagement to discuss what that could look like moving forward. But I'm really excited that we have now, so there are three, so according to, it was a March 8th, 2020 report that I also included in the report with regards to the community benefit program. And it talked about the three things that Samsung and Kingston agreed to. One was planting trees in public right of way, park improvements, and acquisition of parkland natural lands. The boat launch would be included in one of those three. I think we still need to have discussion about opportunities that maybe we could be bringing back to council and to Samsung about rural development. And not saying that those three pieces in terms of the 2020 report were not valid, but maybe there's other things that the Rural Advisory Committee would like to be bringing to the table that we could be looking at now that this funding is now under my responsibility.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm willing to join with you in that. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, I recognize you, Charles Foreman.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Charlie.
Furthering John's comments and question, I just want to make sure that we're actually, I kind of agree with Gary that we're wasting our time talking to Ted Hsu.
Sure. Okay.
And not that Ted Hsu isn't a capable man, he's more than capable. But I just want to be sure that we're actually going to go after the people who are actually maybe have a solution. And whoever's in charge of this at the top I think is where you need to go. And I don't know if you have the time or the ability to do that, but
I do.
I think
I
we're wasting our
definitely
time.
have the time and the ability. So if
Because this has
you're
been going
not,
on for, Gary said 6 years. I've been looking at it at 20 some odd years, 30 years, and it's gone nowhere in that amount of time. Has anybody followed up on it? I think I was talking on deaf ears when I first brought it up. I think it's time that it changed, because when we're talking about food sovereignty and everything else that, your spiel is, this is at the heart of it. There's a lot of young farmers will just skip over this area. They're held back because of it. And in my case, we got our money from down at Cornwall, and nothing local at all. It shouldn't have to do that. It's craziness. Anyway,
I agree,
past
Charlie.
that.
Yep. Thank you.
The community training farm, I'm very interested. So 30 people graduated. Are we tracking what type of businesses they're going into? Are they starting their own farms?
So 30 people are still functioning and fully engaged in the program. So the program right now, St. Lawrence College is doing trade skills training with them. So all summer they did on-farm training at the corner of Days and Front Road. This fall and early winter, they're doing trade skills training with St. Lawrence College. So they're doing welding, carpentry, skills safety, like so chainsaw safety. They're building fencing, and they went to, there was a fruit tree farm that they did. They were learning about paring and fruit treeing and pruning. So right now we have training until February. There's 30 applicants that are fully engaged in the program. Our goal is to have those 30 applicants then look at job opportunities within the ag sector. Yes. And then my goal is to have what we're hoping. So, and in fact, the province has been really supportive in terms of the next grant round, where our goal is to have this program run for the next 2 or 3 years, and then have 30 to 35 more applicants every single year to support agricultural sector and farming for yourselves, and find staffing to support you.
Thank you. And then I got maybe it's more a comment than a question, but the abattoir. So I was reading your documents, and it said that they've basically only been operating at 25% for the last 2 to 3 years. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how necessary is an abattoir in our area if that's always been operating? Are we only using it for cull animals? In my case, when I was a dairy farmer, that's where you would send a cow that was on her last leg type of thing. So I'm just wondering how important an abattoir actually is. If we want really good meat, most of the beef farmers are here. They send them to hordes, or they go up to Toronto to be sold, and then into feedlots. That's where the real meat is. So I'm wondering if are you wasting your energy on this a little bit?
Okay.
Like I say, it's more. So I just wondering how important is it really? If you really measured the numbers, if he's only operating at 25%, how many animals a week was that? And is it actual finished animals, or are we talking lean cows that are coming in and just being slaughtered for hamburger type of thing? And in that case, it's not really that important in my mind. So I don't know if anybody's looked at that, or
Can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead, Tracy. Mhm.
Okay, so in the past 2.5 years, when I was with Lennox and Edmonton County and working with the potential abattoir in Napanee, which would have been a federal facility, the numbers are staggering. So farms across Ontario are closing at a shuddering level because they don't have choices. So they don't have choices to whether they want to do livestock, whether they want to do crop farming, whether they want to be a small farm, a large farm. And so the challenge has been that the choices haven't been available. So farming is slowly, and Charlie, you and I have talked about this, like decreasing in substantial numbers. There was 315 abattoirs in Ontario 10 years ago, and now there's 127. And that's not because there's not a need. I have had farmers over the past 12 years, and I've been working in the rural landscape for 12 years in the Eastern Ontario region, that have been begging for abattoirs and begging for processing. And the problem is because they cannot find processing, they're closing down their farms or they're changing the way they farm. Succession planning is not even an option anymore because their children and their families and people that are looking are saying, oh my gosh, we see how hard you work and all the hours that you're putting in, but we don't have chances and choices in terms of making, can we farm differently? And John, I know you're a big proponent of this, can we farm differently? And can we, what can we farm? Like, is it crop? Is it livestock? What do we do in terms of livestock? I worked really closely with Quinn's in Yarker before he sold it to Enright Cattle. And he was 10 months, 6 to 12 months easily booking for farms to process the meat. And it wasn't because he didn't want to, it was just because he didn't have the staff and he didn't have the physical capacity to make that happen. I've had farmers say to me, I've had to downsize because I just don't have anywhere to process. Maybe I don't have choices. So then they change the way their landscape is in terms of their farm because they don't have choices in terms of processing. So even though, Bruce Wallace only did 25% capacity, I can tell you just from the past 12 years of me being in rural economic development, my gosh, like farmers are begging for processing facilities. Ruas, for example, is a processing facility for chickens and poultry in north of Belleville. And they have waiting lists of months and months and months. And then the challenge is on Fridays when they do their poultry processing, heaven forbid, it's happened probably 3 times in the past 4 months, their equipment is broken down and everybody in line with their trucks full of chickens are going, we're done. Like the equipment just shut down. We can't process. It's a problem. And I'm seeing it through not just me, talking to farmers, but we're seeing it through research and data. We need to open up Joyceville. I have farmers calling me from the region saying, you need to figure this out. They're going to be closing down. We have farmers in the region that are calling me saying, we're done if we don't have opportunities. So I think it's important, and and it may not be the large farmers like yourself, but the smaller farmers who have, 50, 10, 100 cattle, pigs, sheep that are smaller amounts, but they still have a living to make and they're still looking at selling locally. And then here's the other challenge. So then I have restaurants calling me who are saying, we want local produce. And I have businesses calling me, we want local food, but they can't get the local produce and the local meat and the local food because nobody's producing it because they don't have anywhere to process it. So it's kind of a catch-22.
So there's only one part of that troubles me. Even the big plants can't find Canadian workers to kill animals and dress them out. So how does a small plant do that? And that's a huge problem.
So I have a solution. Yeah, so I have a local solution to that we're starting. So in the report, I also talk about, so when I was working for 2.5 years with LNA and working on that Napanee location, so I was working really closely with Fanshawe College and St. Lawrence College on doing some collaboration. Fanshawe College right now is the only college in Ontario that does butcher training specifically for abattoirs and processing facilities. So Fanshawe and St. Lawrence have been willing to work together. And so when I talked to Corrections Service Canada 2 weeks ago, and talking to them about, them being a training facility with St. Lawrence College. So St. Lawrence College is willing to, with Fanshawe, look at adapting the program and bringing it here locally so that we can actually train not just with the prisoners, but train outside people that are working and employees to learn butcher skills that can actually help with that problem that you're just saying.
Thank you. I recognize John Wernham. You have a question?
You're still on mute, John.
I'm still muted. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
So to tie into the points that were just being made between Charlie and Tracy, So Charlie, one of your things was that with the lack of CFDC support, we've got a big barrier to entry that's having young farmers skip right over Frontenac County, Kingston area. And I would tie into that and say the lack of processing ability around here is part of that. So, with my nice grass-fed lamb, the only way to unlock the premium in that product is to have it butchered locally, because, I'm not growing truckloads worth of them. Nobody's interested in less than 100 lambs if you're taking them to a big plant. So without these small places, there's no opportunity for a young farmer to start up and grow a premium product. And you can't just go to 5,000 head of ewes off the hop. And then I definitely agree that the issue with the 25% capacity at Wallace Meats was likely a labor issue, but the problem is it's one of those known unknowns. We know that they were only 25% capacity, but we don't know why. For myself, I'd find that I need to be booking out 15 months in advance to get my lambs butchered and 6 months in advance for any sort of poultry. So the 3 abattoirs in the area have basically oligopoly on the sector, and having some competition would be better for all of us, I think.
And do you have a question?
No, that was just comment.
Okay, thank you. Further questions for Tracy on the briefing? Well, if I could pass the chair, I have a few questions, if that's permissible.
I do receive the chair and I recognize you.
Thank you, Councillor Oosterhoff. Kingston Public Market redevelopment. Looking at the report you've presented, one proponent, and I'm quoting, has come through that has the skills, experience, and the city relationship to accomplish this. I need to understand, you made a comment about Loving Spoonful. Is it Loving Spoonful who is the proponent, who is going to become the manager of the Kingston Public Market redevelopment?
Good question. So tomorrow night we're announcing, or we're hoping for council to approve that Loving Spoonful will be the approved proponent to operate Market Square Farmers Market in order to, for the next 3 years. The contract has not been developed. We're still working between lawyers and boards on the contract, but we've approved at the city level that Loving Spoonful is the approved proponent to operate the Market Square under my purview.
If I could be a supplemental question to that.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
So my understanding is your department was looking for a manager to manage, and now it's a proponent. I just want to understand, for the purposes of spending taxpayers' dollars, how many people is this growing to manage the redevelopment of the farmers market at Market Square, because it seems like it's strayed. Perhaps my understanding was incorrect, but now we're looking at an organization, which to me means more people. That's to do a manager's job. We need to have some clarification to that point.
Of course. Okay, so in the past and forever, Rec and Leisure has always been overseeing Market Square, always. So Rec and Leisure has always managed the vendors. They've always managed, the site and what it looks like, all the events. They've worked with BIA, Tourism Kingston. Rec and Leisure has always been the managing department in terms of Market Square. When this came, into the forefront, and Lanny, our CAO, was like, we need to really look at food security and food sovereignty, and really support farmers and bring that back to Market Square. It was decided with Rec and Leisure that they would then put an RFP out to look for a proponent to operate Market Square Farmers Market with an oversight of the city of Kingston. So that's how it was presented. So the RFP was to have an operator run Market Square with an oversight from the city of Kingston, with the first year goals of making it a designated Ontario farmers market. That was the first year goals. Because of my job in terms of the rural economic development strategy, Rec and Leisure asked if I could oversee the project over the next few years. And because of my job with rural strategy, food sovereignty, like the collaboration of food and farming and ag, we of course said yes. So I'm overseeing the project. We're going to council tomorrow for them to approve that Loving Spoonful is the proponent that has been accepted through the RFP. We still have a contract to sign with them in terms of what that looks like. Did I answer your question?
Yes. I think this will come to fruition as time goes along, and I'm not trying to put the cart in front of the horse. It's
No.
just a little bit different as far as how I thought this was going to be executed.
Can I
And
add to that?
That's fine. Sure,
So
go ahead.
I'll just add to that. So Rec and Leisure in the past, forever and ever, have operated Market Square. And not one of them, and they will say the same thing, and respectfully, they're not farmers, they're not agricultural people, they just don't do this for a living. So they've just been doing their job to manage Market Square. Many years ago, I want to say, I'm sorry, I don't know, because I've only been a year with the city. I want to say it's like 8-9 years ago, Memorial Market, the farmers market there, city-owned property, was given a contract to run Memorial Market on their own, with a board, with an association, like all of it, and an operator. But we still maintained the operation of Market Square. Again, way before my time. I've been a year, it was outside of my purview. This is Rec and Leisure. As Rec and Leisure are reviewing what's happening with Market Square, and our CAO is very involved in food security and seeing what Memorial Market is doing, they realize that we need to have somebody help us operate our Market Square at City Hall. And so again, with my job being the way it is and my experience, they felt it was best for my oversight to be operating and working with that proponent.
Thank you.
Any more
I
questions?
do have another question if I could
Absolutely.
carry on. Okay, I'm going to move on to Cecil and Wilma Graham Park. Because unfortunately there's no members of the public at this meeting, but I do recall at the last meeting there being some commentary on using those funds. Boat launch, is a boat launch a good idea? Is it a need? And I'm just looking again at your report, Tracy, talking about this new discussion on the annual amount of $92,000. And the staff has recommended to hold a public engagement meeting. So my question is this something that's going to happen? When I continue reading that paragraph, it talks about early 2023. Are you suggesting that we're going to actually have a public engagement or a meeting to discuss Samsung funds, to discuss Cecil and Wilma Graham Park? Because I think there's many people in the community who care very much as to what happens at that park, care very much about a boat launch, and care very much about how this money is going to be spent.
So my
Good
apologies. Go ahead, sorry.
No, thank you. Go ahead, Tracy. Yeah.
Okay, so my apologies. So this conversation started way before I started a year ago, and has been in multiple conversations way before I started a year ago. I have done a lot of digging, a lot of research, speaking to a number of departments and people with regards to the past of what has happened, what is going on. Lots of work still to be done with regards to this, but from our last conversation in the last meeting, we have $300,000+ in a reserve. And there was a big conversation in our last meeting about maybe using that for a boat launch at the park. I have since gone from that meeting. I went back to multiple departments, talked about, is this a possibility? Is this an option? Do we have other funds that we could match to make this actually happen? It looks like we could make that happen in terms of a boat launch at that site. The other question, though, that's really important is that clerk's office has now given me and the rural office the privilege really to oversee what that Samsung fund looks like every year, that $92,000. And I think moving forward, that's an important conversation to have in terms of what we do with that and how that looks. That 300,000, you can please let me make recommendations in terms of what you want me to do with that. Do we need public engagement on that 300,000 to do the boat launch? Happy to do that. Whatever you recommend, it's entirely up to you.
I think this committee has always been able to host, I'll call it, a public engagement or public reaching out meeting in the rural part of the city of Kingston in the past, and we've done it in person, and this might be our opportunity to do the next one. So my question is if we can, is this something that we can do early 2023?
For the 300,000 or all of it?
I would think all of it. It's a bigger issue, and I think some public input
Yeah.
would be great. I mean, this boat launch has been talked about, and there's people who have strong opinions as to whether there's a boat launch, whether there isn't a boat launch, or where that boat launch goes.
Yeah. May I say a word on this?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
You got so that's really helpful, Allison, because if you see my notes for tomorrow is to call Tracy to discuss location of boat launch. I think we've got two things to talk about here. It's really important to get this minuted, I guess, and divide it up. I'm not sure who can help us, but mostly you, Tracy. I think that certainly I'm hopeful that funds could be used to accelerate a boat launch, but I'm not convinced that we're going to have approval for. I mean, it is water under the bridge that we have a beautiful park through the generosity of people, and that's fantastic. And it has been on the books there for a long time. It has been in the last 12 months, maybe a little bit more, certainly through the pandemic, that we have been requested to find an alternate site. And that is what I would like to discuss with Tracy and maybe come up for rural advisory, any other options. I do know Parks Canada was engaged briefly, but they're so hard to keep on track. And so there might be another location. It will be a significant number of vehicles on Aragon Road. I'm very aware of that. And it's a quiet, beautiful, incredibly pastoral road. So we have to think about that. Can we look at locations that get them on that bay there from the other side? I think there is a possibility, but because it's for sport fishing, right, more than anything else. So I am open to that, recognizing the needs of the community. That's what it's all about. And I really appreciate Allison interjecting, because I thought I'd have to do it after hours. So we can get it out there and talk about it, but maybe we need to talk about sequence of events, because there might be two issues and there might need to be two meetings on that. Madam Chair, I'll pass the chair over to you.
Thank you. Okay, further questions on Tracy's report? There are a lot of points. Any further questions? Okay, I would like to pass. Yes, Tracy?
I just have a question on the sequence of events. So I absolutely agree that we need to talk about that. So what do we recommend moving forward on the sequence of events?
I would suggest, Madam Chair, that that's something that we need to talk to the city about, Parks and Rec. We need to see how that proceeds. And then finally, I do believe, Madam Chair, that it is through us that the division of the funds, I think, it seems to fit for me. So I don't think that we would have an opposition there, but at some point that might have to be a motion too. But there's a lot of people. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair. So a public
Yes.
meeting could be called by the call of the chair. I would caution, however, that the first meeting of the Royal Advisory Committee of the next year, when council approves the new iteration of the committee, would also have to have the election of the chair and everything. So after this kind of a meeting, there isn't really a chair once we've first set up the meeting. So the first meeting of the Royal Advisory Committee will have to be a standard meeting of the committee. And from that as well, generally motions from an advisory committee can't generally direct staff or the city to spend money. They can advise council that this is something that they should look into. But we can certainly have a public meeting on those kind of ideas. You can also have communications do a outreach program via using Tracy Snow as a resource as well. Just wanted to put that out there.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thanks for point of clarification. Very, very important that because our next meeting is with effectively a new rural advisory committee. Yes, I recognize you, Tracy.
Yeah, so can I just ask a question to Clerk Sullivan, please? So is there an opportunity for us, based on this meeting, for me to do some work in the interim? Because realizing that we're going to have the next meeting with changes and then the next meeting. So I'm concerned about the time frame. Is there something that we can be
So-
requesting in this one for me moving forward?
So through you, Madam Chair,
Yes.
as long as you have, as you feel there's a direction for you to go through, you can. You don't necessarily require a motion through this committee to conduct further things along your purview. So if you feel like you can still continue on the conversations behind the scenes to get things set up, absolutely. And then moving forward, we can deal with the new committee going forward into the new year.
Thank you. That's a great point of clarification. Further questions from the committee for Tracy Snow at this point in time? I have to put my hand up, so I must relinquish the chair.
Go ahead, Madam Chair, I recognize you.
The rural transit study and the neighboring municipalities, just a very basic question. Looking at the numbers that have been put out on this report, as far as people commuting from Gananoque Way, from South Frontenac, and no real numbers of the people who commute from the rural part of the city of Kingston into downtown Kingston. What impact has working from home had on this? Do we know that? Because when we're looking at people working at Kingston Health Sciences Center, Queen's University, to my knowledge, in my circle, there's many people working from home, and will continue to work from home.
So I'm very fortunate. I'm on actually that committee that's part of the IBI study. And I will absolutely bring this question to the next meeting, which is in a couple of weeks. They're doing a public push out right now in terms of questions and learning from people and I think all of you were actually included in that. I think you were also given emails to make sure that you were included in that. But I love that question, what impact has working from home had on this? Absolutely. COVID has had a massive impact on what transit looks like and working from home looks like, and that even moving forward, how businesses have changed that work-life balance. Absolutely, you're right. It's a very different conversation pre-COVID than it is now, and the timing is perfect. So yeah, thank you for that question. I'll make sure I bring it to the panel when I work with them.
Okay, Madam Chair, I return the chair. The question I have to top that off, if I may, is Tracy, that is next Tuesday at 5 o'clock, is it not?
Yes. So we had a choice. It was Tuesday at 5, or there was another day as well.
Oh, yeah, in the morning.
You got to pick a choice, and everybody's just having individual. So it's not a group meeting. This is actually just a question time where they get to ask you different questions about your thoughts on transit,
Yes.
rural opportunities and gaps and opportunity. So yes, so I'm so pleased if all of you can be participating. That would be wonderful.
Okay, just to be clear. Thank you, Madam Chair. I return the chair.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, I must pass the chair because I do have one more if you could, Councillor Oosterhoff.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Go ahead. I recognize you.
Thank you. Under rural tourism opportunities, Open Farms Kingston Frontenac Tour. My question is 200 attendees visiting farms over a 2-day period in September 10th and 11th.
Yeah.
Is that justification to run the Open Farms event farm tours in 2023? Is that enough to justify the resources that goes into that for both the farmers, the landowners, the hosts, and for 2 municipalities?
Tracy?
Yeah, very good question. So in the past, when it started, so Frontenac did this event. It was Frontenac Open Farms for 5-6 years now. When they first started the event, oh my heavens, I think there was like 1,000 people that attended the farms, which was a little overwhelming. And then COVID hit, so completely shut everything down. 200 people attended this year on reservations. So all of the farms that participated, I believe there was like 7 or 8 of them. Everybody had reservations. So you would make, if you wanted to attend a farm, you would make a reservation on the farm site. You would find out what they were doing. No, 200 is not the answer, and good question. We've reached out to all of the farming community and any participants. We're looking to have a meeting in early February to talk about what open farms could look like. Frontenac County and the City of Kingston are still looking at partnering for next year in the Open Farms Tour. and possibly a September month of open farms events. So we're just in discussion about what that could look like. We're doing public engagement at the end of January, early February, to see what everybody's interested in and the farmers are interested in. So really making sure that we have that answer that you're asking. The other piece is the Open Farms Harvest event has been tentatively booked for September 30th. But yeah, so Frontenac County and ourselves are doing a public engagement piece right now. I think it's the end of January, early February. We've already sent out the notice and looking for thoughts and ideas. So good question. You're right. A lot of resources for 200 people.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? Madam Chair, do you have more questions?
No, I think I've asked all my questions. Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you.
Excellent questions. Thank you. I'll return the chair.
Thanks kindly. Okay, I'll ask the same thing. Any further questions for Tracy during this briefing at this time? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to items of business. Item number 7. First on the agenda is Public Works and Engineering update. You've received the report that was sent out, and I believe we welcome Luke Fulwell to present this item of business. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And joining me is Director Santucci as well, Director of Public Works and Solid Waste. And she's joined us here by video as well. So just a quick overview of some of the work that was completed in 2022 and look forward to 2023. So in 2022, this is across the network that's provided the table in front of you in the report, where we completed about 70 lane kilometers across the city of Kingston network, which is fairly significant and a great improvement to some of the rehabilitation. And I can say that the majority of that work was completed in the rural part of our community. I'm not going to go through the full detailed list today, but certainly happy to answer any questions related to the work that we have done in the rural part of the community. We have been working more closely with our partners in Public Works in terms of our road rehabilitation and preparation work for some of the projects that have been completed. Public Works has been out doing ditching, culvert work, maintenance and drainage improvements prior to our more robust external contractors coming in and completing some of our either surface treatment program or our road rehabilitation and paving program. And it's great to have the skills and abilities in-house to do some of that work, and certainly benefits our entire network. We've started a fairly large project on Sand Hill Road, where we've just done some of the preliminary work this year in culvert replacements and improvements, with the balance of that work and the actual surface being repaved in the spring of 2023 when plants open back up. And if phase 2 will be presented to council for their consideration as part of their budget deliberations in February of this year, so that we would be completed from Highway 15 to the boundary. And we're working with the county as well to the east to hopefully get some collaboration. Well, we have been collaborating so that they complete their section further to the east as well, which would be a nice full connection east to west. On our stormwater, more minor projects and replacements and works on our municipal drain system. We do have a major project along Highway 2 at Treasure Island, where we're doing a major road raising and improvements to Abingdon Highway 2 and St. Lawrence Avenue, and that will be under construction next year. We've got some works in terms of additional turtle mitigation measures in that section as well, around the Medoma Marsh and wetland. On our parks and shoreline projects, more on the asset management than anything, is play structure replacements and improvements, a new pathway connection in Rudd Avenue down to Serpentine Lane, and turtle mitigation measures out on the west portion of Highway 2 near Westbrook. Got a major road or bridge rehabilitation that will be taking place next year. It's in design now at the Collins Creek Bridge, which is Taylor Kidd Boulevard west of Collins Bay Road. And we will continue to work through additional upgrades and work. One of the projects identified earlier in the conversation by our colleague Ms. Snow was the Cecil and Wilma Graham, where we have been in close contact and will continue to be through that process, as the project would lie within a waterfront master plan initiated project. Boat launch was increased in priority as part of the 2021 Parks and Rec Master Plan update, where it recommended some work to be done there in the next 1 to 5 years. So we look forward to hearing what the public has to say about what it is that they want to see at Cecil Wilma Grant Park. But we do have something identified in 2024 that could address some of those concerns regarding a small craft launch. And I will pass it to, one additional piece. We have been receiving some feedback from residents regarding assumed and unassumed roads across the entire city of Kingston network. What types of maintenance activities have been happening historically? This is in some cases pre-amalgamation, what roads were assumed or not assumed. So our team in engineering services is leading a detailed, very deep dive into those records, and will be presenting to council in 2023 recommendations on about 40 sections of network across the entire city. The majority of those do rely or reside in the rural part of the community, but not all of them. We will be making recommendations that in some cases, maybe the city should go through the formal assumption process if they haven't already passed a bylaw. And that would include potential road upgrades at that time or at some time in the near future in order to meet the standards of today. Or in some cases, it may recommend not to go through that formal assumption process. So just a bit of a work in progress, but something that's been lingering for some time that we're working through with our legal department right now to get us a little more information and do a detailed scoring of all those assets. And we will present that information for consideration. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Ms. Santucci, to fill in any additional gaps that I may have missed.
Thank you, Luke. That was awesome. I think Luke hit the nail on the head when he said that engineering and public works have been working together on a lot of the projects that we've been doing. So that's been working very well for both of us, I think. I'll just add in a couple other small items that we have that we're working on or that we continue to work on in terms of getting a lot of uptake from the rural community. The first one is the Clean Neighborhoods program. We get a significant uptake on that through the rural residents. So that's something that we'll continue to promote and work on. And our neighborhood tree program. So this year we sold 3,600 trees. From that, 26% of the trees went to people in the rural area, so about 940 trees. We are expecting to go ahead and sell another 3,600 trees in 2023. And also in 2023, we're looking at upgrading our urban forestry management plan. We are looking to change that a little bit so that it's not just urban forestry anymore, that it's forestry for the entire city. So that would also incorporate some of the rural aspects of that as well. Okay. Thank you.
Great, that concludes. I assume Luke and Karen, and I was remiss in not properly introducing you, Luke, for the benefit and the education of the committee. Luke Falwell is the Director of Engineering Services with the City of Kingston. And thank you for identifying Karen Santucci's position as well. Thank you very kindly for that report. And I'm going to open the floor to members of the committee to ask questions of either Luke or Karen at this point in time. Yes, I recognize you, Councillor Oosterhoff.
Of course, I can't keep out of the conversation when it comes to roads, right? Thank you, Luke and Karen, for that. So great work in 2022. We really, in a pandemic, we really have seen how amazing our teams really are. And I don't say that lightly. We really, I think from a rural perspective, we're really appreciative of it. So the question I have, and maybe I missed it, Luke, forgive me, but do we have a tentative roads list that's the next? I have got a bunch of calls even the last 2 weeks of some more concerns, and I know we can offline deal with it, but did I miss it? Like, I know we talked about the roads here, you showed the listing, but do we have the next phase of where you're looking to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Katzner, through you, Madam Chair. We're working on that, Councillor. This year is a bit of a an off year in terms of the timing of council and budget deliberations.
Yes.
So in previous years, we would have already presented that information to council for their consideration. And that would be the same. So we've got that list that will come as part of your budget package for 2023.
Right.
So that's why we're in a bit of a different and awkward sort of timing of things here.
Yes, that does help me too, because I forget some of these protocols and timelines too. So that helps. So something is coming, and I can always forward to you different concerns of constituents, which is really great. And I thank you for your willingness to be keep that open. The work in progress, the roads list, I wanted to ask Treasure Island. So did we get as far as we wanted to there, or was that the Treasure Island, all that is a fair bit of work there? Is that do we hope to be finished in 1 year?
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So it's been a multi-phase project. So we initially went in, which we refer to as phase 1, and completed the road raising of St. Lawrence Avenue only. And we added concrete jersey barriers to allow for additional protection. So we raised the road essentially to get us just above what the high water was in 2017, and then added the concrete barriers to provide any additional protection if waves came in. That has bought us the time to go through the detailed analysis and design process, which we're just finalizing now in terms of moving forward to the next phase of construction, which would be the permanent raising of the road and shoreline treatments and culverts and surface rehabilitation. And that's the same for St. Lawrence Avenue, essentially from Treasure Island to Highway 2. And then we've got a section on Highway 2 that's about 200 meters in length from Abbey Dawn to the east, where if you've driven it, there's some waves and some low spots. And then up Abbey Dawn to the north by about 200 meters as well. So that work is in the final design stages now, and we'll be applying for permits very shortly, and then moving forward with the procurement and construction starting next year.
Yeah,
so
thanks for that. Yeah, that's good to know. I know we've been watching that one closely. Madam Chair, the last thing I have, I do want to make sure it's clear to Rural Advisory, to the committee, about discussions on the assumed and unassumed roads, which Luke and I have gone back and forth over a few times, and he's been involved with several roads. And will that, I guess we're going to get a report on that. And I guess I didn't realize, Luke, that there's a lot of thoughts on that in the community, and some unassumed roads, you say, will impact residents, and some won't. I guess there's different categories on unassumed roads. So I've had a bunch of calls in the last 2 weeks on that, and I didn't realize some of these conditions. And so we will look forward to that report, and I'm hopeful that we're going to see it'll be something that Rural Advisory is kept abreast on, I guess.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Certainly would be shared with Rural Advisory. I've not got full clarification as to whether it would come here or to EITP, because it is not just the rural part of the community. So we'll just want to make sure through our clerk's department as to where the appropriate venue at committee is for that conversation.
Okay.
So I don't have that answer, unfortunately, today. But as I presented to yourself and if members of the public at a meeting a few weeks ago, we are working through that process. It is something that we will have in front of committee and council in 2023, so that we can put a marker down and move forward from that point.
Yeah, I do want to thank you again for that, on behalf of the committee too. That was excellent engagement with the community, and it just was really appreciated. Thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Councillor Oosterhoff. Any further questions? Yes, I recognize you, Charlie. We can't hear you.
Thanks for the nice roads that you've done this year for us out in the northern part of Pittsburgh Township. Really appreciate that. My concern is you're doing the Sand Hill Road. You did a beautiful job on the Brewers Mills Road, but when go back to when you did the 6th concession. Were you part of that? The Swamp Road?
Yeah, yes, I would have been, Mr. Foreman.
So my concern is that road was narrowed terribly and raised up. And so when you're driving a big truck or a big piece of machinery, it's like you're driving down a gauntlet, and many mirrors have gone clipped off by trucks passing other trucks. And if you pull over to the edge, there's no shoulder to pull over onto. So if I'm driving a piece of machinery that's 18, 20 feet wide, there's literally no room for anybody to, it's terrible. And I just want to make sure that when we do the Sand Hill Road, we don't do the same thing. The Brewers Mills Road doesn't seem to be a problem, but the Sand Hill Road is a little higher road. Have you guys taken that into consideration, or a good example? Well, I was going to, sorry to cut you off, but if you were to drive to the end of the Brewers Mills Road and onto the Boundary Road and then onto the Taylor Road that the front of Leeds did this year, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And I'd love to show you the problems that we've got. The shoulder is only 3 inches, 4 inches wide, and the gravel just falls away if you step on it, let alone drive on it. We're afraid there's going to be some catastrophic accidents. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Certainly not aware of the catastrophic accident risk. So I appreciate that feedback, and we can certainly take a look at it. I can confirm that following your comments from the meeting last year, we did go out and take a look at 6 liner and confirm, we're not making things narrower. I can tell you that, although it may appear to be narrower. And certainly with Sand Hill Road, it will have a different treatment than Brewers Mills, for sure. We're adding as much platform to that road as we possibly can without full ditch rehab and replacement along Sand Hill. So you'll get a little extra wiggle room in terms of paved shoulders in that section, but that's not always possible in some of our rural cross sections without a full reconstruction of the road. So we are going. We're not reducing lane widths. I can confirm that.
It's not so much the lane that we're concerned about, it's that there's no shoulder. So if you've got a big wide implement or a big truck and you're trying to pull over, there's no wiggle room there. The pavement might still be the same, but there's just the room for error is zero. And we're just afraid somebody's going to get hurt, and it's going to be the worst day ever.
Yeah, we certainly don't want that. And we want to make sure that you're moving across the city in an appropriate way as well, right? So if there needs to be lead vehicles associated with that movement, then that's the process. But
the next question is not necessarily aimed towards Kingston, but it's what I saw done in my the next road, the Taylor Road. They went ahead and did all the culverts without talking to the farmers, me being one of them, where the water was draining, say, from the north to the south, and they ended up putting in the culverts backwards. And so they had to dig up a bunch of them and redo them. And they were the guys that were on the job were saying, if we could only talk to the people who that affects, rather than just coming and doing the work, would have saved that township a lot of money. And I'm just wondering, there really doesn't seem to be much connection when people come in to do this work with the people who own the lands around it, understanding which way the water drains or how it's going to affect their backyard. Has that ever come into your scope of thoughts? Or?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So we are certainly doing detailed surveys that tell us on the paper where the water flows and where things go and the size of the driveway culverts or the cross culverts. Sand Hill Road would be a good example, where we replaced all driveway culverts and cross culverts. So we can certainly take another look, and adding a layer of engagement is something that could be considered. I think in the right situations, we don't want to do it just to if there's no added value, of course, but if there's information that can be shared with the people that live there and know the area certainly better than I can say, myself, we happily receive that feedback.
That's the only question I had for you, but I also have a question for Karen on the clean rural area that we're talking about. In Germany or in Europe in general, lots of roads have waste baskets along the side where someone can drive up and just toss their garbage into it. And I would really appreciate that something like that, because most of us in our neighborhood go around cleaning the garbage up, and it's an endless job. And we're just wondering if there isn't a better way that the city could handle that. I don't know how you would manage it. I can't quite picture all of that, but the neighborhood would appreciate it if we're trying to make our rural area to keep it looking nice.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I believe that sometimes putting a garbage can out will just attract people putting out extra garbage. I think there are ways maybe to work around with the neighborhood cleanup program, though, which is we have specifically marked bags. So if there are people that are collecting garbage on a regular basis, we can get some of those bags to them that they can then put out with their garbage, and it would get picked up as an extra bag from what they normally put out, because they are identified as a cleanup bag. I'm not sure if that's something, Mr. Foreman, that you think may work or not, but it is an alternative as opposed to putting out bins, because we find the more garbage bins we put out, the more garbage we actually attract. And a lot of it that we attract isn't garbage coming from, people putting it out or people cleaning up. It's more people dumping.
Thank you.
Further questions for either Luke or Karen under this item of business? Still no attendees from the public, as I can see, unless you see any clear. Okay, so there's no opportunity for questions from members of the public at this point in time. Okay, thanks kindly very much for being with us, both Luke and Karen, and appreciate your time, your report, and all your good work, and good luck as you lobby for the budget you're asking for in 2023. That's excellent, and wish you all the best, and wish you and your loved ones a very Merry Christmas as well. Okay, next item on the agenda under business is Rural Economic and Community Development Update. Now, we did have a briefing on this, but at this point in time, and this is always kind of a little bit interesting, we have an opportunity to have the report. Tracy, I'm going to pass the floor to you to address this.
Sorry, I'm not sure what I'm addressing. My apologies.
Well, it's kind of, we're in a unique position with your position, and we have an opportunity for a briefing where the committee gets to ask questions, and then you are here and in a capacity as an item of business where members of the committee can ask questions, but also members of the public can ask questions, and that's a significant difference when it comes to discussing things under your auspices. So I'm going to just have Clerk Sullivan just sort of clarify this so that we're not redundant on anything, but if there is an opportunity to have more discussion on something, this could be the opportunity. So Clerk Sullivan, please.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So yes, this is a little bit of a thing that we've done the last couple of meetings where we've had the briefing and then the report. Since there are currently no members of the public in attendance tonight, there is not going to be any public commentation, but at this point, in this kind of a manner, it would be best to have them speak now. At this point as well, if we've had questions about the report previously dealt with at the briefing, if there are no further questions from members of the committee on the report, it is as this report is only for information only, we can consider the business item concluded and move on with the agenda.
Thanks for a point of clarification. So I'm going to put it out to the floor to the committee. Are there any further questions for Tracy at this point in time before we do move on any aspect of that was mentioned in the briefing? Okay. Then seeing none, sorry for the confusion. It's just this new position. It gives us a really great opportunity to dig deep on some things. So if everybody is comfortable with us moving on, there's no further questions of Tracy. We again appreciate you making the presentation during the briefing, and of course, if there was anything supplementary under the business. All right. Moving on the agenda, motions. Are there any motions? Again, I'd like to, Clerk Sullivan, no motions. Okay, notices of motions. Thank you. Item 10, other business. That anyone is bringing, doesn't look like it from any
I can
committee
just
member?
say, from our office, it's been thank you everybody for your service on the committee so far. I know a couple of you have reapplied. So we can confirm that the Nominations Advisory Committee meets this week to choose the next iteration of this committee. And then the clerk's office will be in contact with the future members of this committee to discuss when the kind of next following steps, and also that the next calendar set for the Rural Advisory Committee is why under date of next meeting it says will be determined. Council will be approving the updated meeting list and schedule tomorrow at council. It's, I believe, their first item of business after the delegations. And after that, any new members of the committee, after they have been chosen by the Nominations Advisory Committee, will be informed of the meeting schedules moving forward. I just wanted to bring that little point of clarification there.
Great. That was going to be my last question. I think this is my last meeting. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for, yes, I recognize you, Councillor Oosterhoff.
Yeah, I just definitely want to thank the clerk for his comments and just publicly thank both John and Charlie if they're not coming back, as I think it's John has just said. Just really thank them for their amazing support, and really great to get to know them and their contributions to the countryside.
Thanks kindly. I would just like to thank Clerk Sullivan coming on and a little bit late as far as serving as the chair. I've learned a lot. I appreciate your support, and it just really helps to have somebody coaching. And I really appreciate that you're providing that to me anyhow in this role, because I want to do my best at it as well. Oh, I just had something and I dropped it. Oh dear, under other business. Yes. Is this an opportunity, Clerk Sullivan? I'm going to go through you for us to ask committee members if there's a preference as to how this committee would like to meet going forward. If there's a willingness or an interest, I throw the question out. Do people want to meet in person? Do people want to exclusively continue to meet virtually like this? Because there's pros and cons of both. Clerk Sullivan, yes.
So through you, Madam Chair, I can confirm the next iteration of the Rural Advisory Committee will be consulted by the clerk's office sometime in the first half of 2023 on the future format of the Rural Advisory Committee in terms of if it will meet in a hybrid style, the pros and cons of that, or staying in a virtual style and the pros and cons of that as well. We are currently just waiting until everything is in place, and we'll be kind of detailing more of that in after the new year, and we will be talking more about that in a little bit, but just wanted to share that will be happening in the first half of 2023.
That is grand. Thank you very much, Clerk Sullivan. Anything else under other business before we move on? All right, correspondence. Have we received any correspondence, Clerk Sullivan? Nothing. Okay, all right. Date of next meeting. Clerk Sullivan, I'm going to look at you. We really don't know until this new Rural Advisory Committee gets formed and we have direction from council. Okay, that's great. Then at this point in time, I'd like to move for a motion or ask for a motion of adjournment. John Wernham, thank you. I don't think we need a seconder to adjourn. But if we do, all right, it can be you, Charlie. Just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. December gets to be a busy month, and just wish you all a very happy and healthy holiday season. And if you're not joining the committee, or we'll see who's around the committee table next time. But it's been a pleasure working with all of you. Thank you very much, staff and committee members as well. Bye.
Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry